No two ways about it, the Nutcracker is a Kansas City holiday institution.
Every winter, the Kansas City Ballet does it to great success, so you might be surprised to learn that they're actually rebuilding it.
Artistic director Devin Carney is promising a Nutcracker this December with dramatic new sets, new costumes, and even new choreography.
It all comes with more than a little bit of risk, which he's well aware of.
Your first peek at what's in store starts in upstate New York.
Really good job on the trim.
I think we would need a little shine like here.
I have a very nice working relationship with Rachel. She knows what I like and what I'm expecting. They care what they do, and it shows on the floor.
I often liken what we do to being a musician in an orchestra. We're not jazz musicians. We're orchestra musicians who do what they're asked to do and do it as well as we can. Always looks nice.
Too, right?
If you're looking for Act 2 of Kansas City's new Nutcracker, the scenic backdrops anyway, are about 1,000 miles from home right now. Cobalt Studios in White Lake, New York is teeming with all kinds of sugary sweet imagery, but big as the place may be, 3 more shops are also hard at work building this show.
We would not have been able to paint all of the soft goods for this show in the given time frame. We could do this act this year, the next act another year, but Kansas City they want it all at once. And so more than this shop has to be painting at this time.
But I want to see the spray. I want to see the spray.
As a result, Alon has been making the circuit between White Lake and Albany, Dayton and Chicago, tracking the progress of gigantic pieces, which began as small paintings in the same studio where he also creates children's books.
It's sometimes frustrating, sometimes disappointing, sometimes exciting because somebody else is doing it and somebody else is translating your own design, your own painting. And it's up to me to make sure we keep, even if it's a different artist, keep the look of the original drawing.
The costume designer, Holly Hines, suggested Alon, and I had, of course, thought of him immediately. That was my first thought. But I had heard he kind of stepped away from set design.
So here's where our story turns full circle. Back in 1985, Devin danced the title role for Boston Ballet's production of Romeo and Juliet in front of Alon's first major set designs. These many years later, they're collaborating for the first time. Turned loose to build a Nutcracker for the 21st century.
Just like a uniform needs shining up and getting some sparkle into it. And, you know, we've got a lot of technology nowadays that we didn't have 30 years ago. There's so much more that we can add to a show now.
Ours will be solid classic, sweets, balloons, sleighs, giant clocks and couches, giant trees, everything right in your face.
Slow down. And there'll be puppets too, thanks to Paul Mesner and his crew, adding even more energy to the onstage mix. Of course, the real clock is ticking on all this. In less than 4 months, the sets, costumes, props, and dancers will converge here at the Kauffman Center to start putting it all together in time for the opening curtain on December 5th.
Every one of those line sets overhead has already been occupied and reserved for a particular set or drop for our new Nutcracker. And it's exciting, you know, but we have other shows that we're doing, and those are the ones we're doing right now.
In other words, about the same time last spring that Devin was guiding the troupe through Giselle,
and elbows roll and up.
He also managed to sneak in the first official rehearsal for the Nutcracker. Since then, it's been piecemeal at best, But just a few weeks back, he seized an opportunity to workshop a few ideas for Act Two's Waltz of the Flowers.
I'm working on it with students from our summer program, young aspiring dancers from all over the country. Here's the challenge. I'm working with students when I'm going to be presenting professional dancers. But the fact that I can have the opportunity to work with some kids for a couple of weeks and sort of get a sketch really helps me a lot. It's also helping me start to kind of open my eyes and start to see the production as a whole is coming at me. I want the company to feel confident and comfortable with what they're doing so that when we get to the theater, this is a show that's ready to go.
It's a fun show. It's about, colors and movements and magic. I mean, it's supposed to bring people to these imaginary worlds.
I need this to be a little bigger, that's all. And this guy will be a little bigger.
It's a whirlwind. You get caught in, and it's out of your control. It's just a big machine in progress.
That machine has a $2 million price tag. So, to quote the artistic director, it had better be a bang-up show that lasts for years and years. After all, its predecessor became firmly entrenched as a Kansas City tradition.
It's the same tradition, it's just, it's a different set of sets, costumes, and choreography, but the concept is still there. It's Nutcracker. The story isn't changing. The story is still there, and that's what the beauty of the Nutcracker is it's not going to change. There's still Clara going on a fabulous adventure.
As the clock ticks down on the opening curtain, we'll be looking in on Devon and the ballet's process and progress here on Arts Upload.